Greetings from the 21st century, February 11th, 2021 to be specific, 1822 UTC to be even more specific. I'm your host, Jason Rigdon, and this is the podcast of mystery. Unless you are a time traveler, I'm in your past and you are in my future. How far away we are, I don't know. There could be days, months, maybe even decades of time separating us. Wherever and whenever you are, I hope you're doing well, and I thank you for listening. I've been thinking a lot about time. Like I said, I'm currently in the year 2021. This is the first time in about 20 years that we've had a decent name for the decade. See, we used to talk about the 50s, the 70s, and of course the 90s as decades, but that kind of went away after the year 2000. That decade between 2000 and 2009 really didn't have a name. Some called it the aughts or the 2000s, but nothing really stuck. The same thing happened with the next decade, 2010 to 2019. Wasn't ever really called the teens. I suppose some people did that. I just don't remember it being that popular. It just sounds funny. But the 20s, now that sounds right. Can you believe that? I'm living in the 20s. Feels strange. The year 2000 was over 20 years ago. Time just keeps on flowing and things just keep changing. What do you think the future holds? Do you have any predictions for the future? What is going to happen this year or this decade? Or how about what is going to happen in the next 20 years? I'd love to hear your predictions. Send them to podofmystery@gmail.com. Maybe you are a clairvoyant or a prophet of God, or maybe your alien friends have told you what the future holds. Send those predictions to podofmystery@gmail.com. I'd also love to hear your suggestions for guests on this topic of future predictions. Are there any futurists or psychics or astrologers or doomsayers that you would like to hear on the podcast of mystery? Send me an email with your suggestions at podofmystery@gmail.com. I always love to hear your suggestions. It helps me discover new people. It also really helps to break the ice when I tell a potential guest that my listeners have requested them to come on the show. While we're talking about time, I can't help but also mention that I'm still seeking a time traveler to come on the show. Any time traveler would do. I actually was going to have a time traveler in this 5-episode launch block, but they never showed up for the interview. I tried emailing them later and still haven't got a response. I've been in contact with 2 others, but unfortunately, either they are all chickening out about coming on the show or something else is happening. Either way, I'm still looking for time travelers to come on the show. So if you are a time traveler or if you know of a time traveler, please email me at that same address, podofmystery@gmail.com. I've got a really great show for you this time. I've got Mark, Mandy, and Kayla from the Ohio Paranormal Society. This was another one of those crazy interviews where, it was only scheduled for 20 minutes, but the interview was so amazing that we just kept on going and going. They talk about their paranormal investigations into paranormal spots in the Ohio area and their frightening experience with a real-life demonic possession. You're going to love this, but first, I've got this quick message. Have you followed the podcast of mystery on social media yet? I'm at Pod of Mystery on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to help the show, following on social media is a quick, easy way to do that. You could probably do it right now. You're probably listening on your phone right now. Just open up Twitter or Instagram and search for Pod of Mystery and hit that follow button. I know it's kind of strange, but guests do look at social media numbers when deciding to come on a podcast. If you don't have enough followers, they just aren't interested in coming on. It's a silly, meaningless popularity contest, but it is the way the game is played. So do me a favor and follow the show on Twitter and Instagram. It's at Pod of Mystery on both sites. It's something free and easy you can do to help the podcast of mystery. Oh, and if you want, you can follow me personally on Twitter. I'm at Mr. Rigdon. So that's MR_RIGDEN. I probably post way too much about politics on there, but check me out if you want.
My name is Mark Roby. I've been investigating the paranormal for about 15 or 16 years or so. It started a long time ago, back when I was working, a retail job, and had someone come up to me and had some questions about the paranormal, and thought that I was someone that could help them. So it kind of got me really into it, into the investigating side of it. So I started a group with my friend Rocky Ramirez, and Rocky and we had the group going for a few years and brought on Mandy and also interviewed some other people. So, I mean, we've been investigating for quite a while now. Rocky now he's moved on to Texas. So it's just myself and the team. So we filled a few more spots, which is how we got Kayla. And you'll hear from her a little bit later in this podcast. But a pretty solid team. We investigate. Our members are spread out all over Ohio. So we hit a lot of areas in Ohio. When we first started, we did a lot more residential locations. And now a lot of people, with the TV shows and all that stuff happening, a lot of people they'd call us up and they'd expect a big camera crew and stuff like that. We just show up with our gear. Okay, we're here to try to figure out what's in your house and get some evidence for you. But a lot of people want that. They want to be on the news. They want to be in the papers. They want to be on TV. They want that little bit of fame. And that's not something that we typically offer to people. Well, we have been in the paper and on the news and stuff, but that's nothing that, that we don't bring a big camera crew with us when we go on investigations and all that. And we don't have ties with TV shows and producers and all that stuff. But so as the years have gone on, we started investigating more famous areas like Prospect Place, Mansion, the old Mansfield Reformatory or the Ohio Reformatory. There's been quite a few. We'll probably get into some of that later. But so we actually have 2 investigations coming up. The first one is at Brunella Cottage in Galion, Ohio. And then we have another one down at the Emory Theater in Cincinnati. So those are 2 that we should be able to share some evidence from going forward.
And we have 2 other people on the line here too, I think.
Yeah, my name's Amanda, or you can call me Mandy. I've been with the Ohio Paranormal Society for about 6 years now. Mark brought me on once Rocky left, and I've been doing it with them for 6 years. And yeah.
My name is Kayla. I am a mutual friend of Mandy, so that's kind of how I was introduced into the group. I have been interested in the paranormal since I was really little and was fortunate enough to, get into investigating with this group. I've been with them for a little over a year now, I think. But that pretty much sums up my time with them.
And how do you find your places to investigate? Do they come to you, or you go to them and ask, can we come in?
Mostly kind of look
go ahead,
up.
Mandy.
So we've kind of mostly been like looking up different places and then just kind of contacting the owners.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. There is a potential investigation that will be hopefully happening. A family contacted us actually today. My wife is also in the group, and she made a post on Facebook, and they've been communicating back and forth through Facebook Messenger. But it's a local investigation with a residential property. So that's something where they would come to us. A lot of the residential stuff, they would come to us, or a lot of times they know that we have interest in the paranormal. They may not know we're doing investigations, but it might be, coworkers or whatever. And they'll come to us and ask, hey, so I got this stuff going on, and what do you think about that? And usually when that happens to me, I'm like, well, my team can come out and we can check it out and try to dig into that a little further for you and try to get you some answers. So it's kind of both. A lot lately here with COVID, especially with COVID, we've been trying to find locations to go to. So more of the well-known places like the Brunella Cottage and the Emory Theater, or Prospect Place Mansion, Ohio State Reformatory, places like that.
And when you get a place to investigate, what kind of equipment, or how do you plan that out? It seems like an interesting thing to, you're actually doing the investigation a lot of us just think about doing.
We pretty much, between the both of us, we've bought enough equipment. So we have like a certain amount of cameras between us both, and when we go to a place, we set up our cameras. We'll spread them out, and then we talk about the areas that are active, and then we'll set up our cameras. We usually bring our EMF detectors. We just now got a spirit box and a couple Eddies. Mark, you are working on a Kinect camera, right? Is what you were?
Yeah, so I'm working on putting together an SLS camera using the Xbox 360 Kinect and a Windows computer.
And so before starting this group, had any of you had any paranormal experiences previously?
Yes.
Do you mind telling us what that experience was?
Sure. So this was back before the group actually started. When I first started getting an interest in the paranormal, I was asked to come out to someone's house and just check it out. And they were leaving for the weekend. So instead of them getting the house sitter to take care of the dog, both their dogs actually, I said, I'll come do it. I'll try to figure out what's in your house while I'm there. So it's something I did on my own. And it's not something I would normally recommend doing by yourself. Just because if things decide to manifest and it does get physical, there's no one else there to witness it or to help you if you needed help or with anything. But in this house, I was actually taking a nap on the couch one afternoon, and I heard some rattling coming from the kitchen. So I got up, walked in, and checked it out. Couldn't figure out what was making the noise, other than I know it was coming from a stack of plates that was in the cabinet. Because when I moved the plates, I could get it to rattle, but couldn't figure out, what caused it. So they had told me before they left, they said, well, if you sleep in the guest room, we recommend you don't, but if you sleep in the guest room, just make sure that, there's stuff that happens in there. We've had experiences throughout the house. I said, okay, so that's where I slept when I stayed there for the weekend. And that night, I went through the house, made sure all the doors were shut and locked. Nothing was propped open. Went to the guest bedroom, closed the door, locked the door, and both dogs are in the room with me. And I laid down, fell asleep. And it was, I'd say probably 2 a.m. or so. I heard a noise, opened my eyes, and I felt something grab my arm. I was laying on my right side, and I felt something grab my left arm. And then it kind of tossed my left arm over my body, which caused me to just naturally roll. And when I rolled over to my back, I sat up and the bedroom door was swinging open. So both dogs were kind of pushed back into the corner of the room like they were scared. So that was very interesting to me. That was probably my first experience where I was like, yep, this is definitely legit, and it's probably not something I should do on my own. So that's kind of where I left off with that. And after that, after that case, I called it a case, but it really wasn't. But it was after that investigation or that house sitting experience that I decided to start a group when this lady approached me. So.
And what about Mandy and Kayla?
Where I used to live, I had a couple experiences happen. One night I was grabbed, like my leg was jerked in the middle of the night, which caused me to sit up real quick. I didn't see anything. I wasn't really too sure. And then one night, a ball of light came in through my window and then just like hovered above my face. And then it just left. So I had a couple of different experiences, and then that's when Mark had asked me if I'd like to join the team. And then from there, when we went on different investigations, I've had multiple more experiences, seeing shadows, hearing noises. So that really got me interested in the paranormal when I started having my own experiences. What about you, Kayla?
Yeah. So before joining the group, I didn't have anything quite as exciting as Mark and Mandy, but when I was growing up, I was probably around 5 years old or so. I would always talk about a friend that I had and that I played with, and I always referred to him as the man who jingled when he walked. So I talked about him for years, and everybody, brushed it off as, oh, it's an imaginary friend, nothing to worry about or think about. It wasn't until we were going through some family albums at my great-grandma's house that I pointed to a picture of my great-great-grandpa who had died when my mom was little. And I said, that's him. That's the man who jingles when he walks. And come to find out, he used to carry his keys attached to his belt loop. So he did jingle when he walked. So, growing up and hearing that story, it just really interested me in the paranormal, and then being able to join with a group and have more and more experiences just gets you thinking more and more about what's out there that you can't, tangibly see sometimes or touch or feel. So gets you thinking.
So, Mark, when you started this group, there's probably a point where you went on kind of your first real investigation. What was that like?
So the first real one, we actually went a couple places and just kind of tested out some equipment and gear. But the first real investigation was actually at my house. Rocky was going through a divorce and needed a place to stay. And I had just moved into this duplex. And I asked Rocky, I said, hey, you want to come out and stay with me? Rent's cheap. And so he did. So we set up our equipment there. I had multiple friends that saw things in the house. I experienced things in the house right away. So we started doing just a little bit of investigating there. And that kind of really piqued our interest. And then we were contacted by another group or another family out in, I forget the town, but it's up north in Ohio near Shelby in Mansfield area. But Bucyrus, that's where it was. So family out in Bucyrus contacted us, and we went out and investigated their home. And there we had all kinds of EVPs. We caught a shadow person on camera. We dug up, digging through their attic. It was an area they had just moved into, and they hadn't been through all the stuff in the attic. And we went through the attic and found a couple old pictures that were, they believed to be family members. Their little daughter was experiencing things in the house. So we were able to catch some of that on intercom, like a baby monitor. So we were able to hear, there was no one upstairs with the daughter, and she was up in her crib taking a nap. And we were able to hear footsteps in her room. We heard stuff get shuffled across the table. We heard her start to cry. And then through the intercom, we heard someone say, "It's okay. Everything's okay." And then the mom and I both went running upstairs, and there was no one up in that room. So we've had all kinds of experiences there. We actually went back to that place three times. Went back 3 times.
Do you think that voice was actually like a voice of kindness, or was it something else?
Yeah, we believe it was a voice of kindness. We think it was. So the family believes it was a family member that had passed. That was just kind of hanging out and looking over the family. But they have since moved, and they're not experiencing those things anymore. So that makes me think that maybe it wasn't that, but it was just a spirit that was in the house.
You said about not going to these places, not doing these investigations alone, because it could be a problem. Have you ran into any of those kinds of things where you're happy that you had company with you?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, we actually, there was one case in particular, and it's one I don't talk about very often, but it was up north in Ashtabula, and there was a full-on possession that happened, a demonic possession, and we had to get those demons out of the person. And in doing so, there was a lot of activity that happened that didn't make me feel very comfortable. I definitely would not have wanted to be there alone.
How do you go about getting a demon out of someone? Or is that something you can share? I don't know how open all this kind of stuff is.
Yeah, so most of the group, when I first started the group, we started as a Christian-based paranormal group. So our beliefs are biblical based. But we do believe that spirits, and I kind of have a theory for all this, but we do believe that spirits exist, ghosts, angels and demons. So the majority of the time, what we run into, we believe are like ghosts or spirits, but there are what a lot of people call familiar spirits or negative spirits, and those typically we believe are demonic. Now, as the group has grown, I know we have some people that are a little more loosely Christian and not as into the faith as like our core group, and that's okay because it gives us their perspective on things as well. But biblically, we believe, that to get demons out, it's full on exorcism. So you have to command them out in the name of Jesus.
And you said you had like kind of a theory for what's going on here. I mean, that's kind of the big question, is what is going on here?
Right. I do have a theory. Were you wanting that?
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. Yeah, because I mean, this is kind of like the real heart of the matter. Whenever you experience or hear people talk about this stuff, you always wonder, well, what's really going on?
Okay, so it's a little difficult to explain. So if you get confused, just stop me and ask questions. But so I believe that the spiritual realm and the earthly realm have two different times. So like, there's not really a concept of time in heaven or hell, right? So I believe that is, or in the spiritual realm. So I believe that is like an infinite amount of time. So when people pass, I think that we can still interact with them because we are physically in our time. So we're interacting with them in our time. But for them, it's like an instantaneous thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. It's kind of mind bending, but yes.
Yeah. It's a reach maybe, but.
And then why are these spirits here? Do you understand why they're kind of like, like you said, that one was kind of associated with a family and a house? Yeah.
So with that one, I don't believe that it was a family member. They did. They still might. I don't know. I haven't talked to them for a little while, but we typically try to keep in contact with a lot of our clients that are residential. But with them, they've moved on and they don't have those experiences anymore. So it leads me to believe that it probably was not a family member. But I believe, we can experience them because of that, that theory that I just kind of explained. We're still able to interact because we are physically in this, interacting in this time, right? But I do believe that there's residual hauntings as well, which is like the energy of the spirits or the people, just like say you're walking on a beach, right? You have all the footprints from all the people that are there. And then someone comes an hour later and they see all those footprints still. They're able to see that people were there. That's kind of what it's like. So like with spirits, especially in high areas where there's high traffic, or maybe there's been like some traumatic experience there, that energy is increased because there's so much activity or so much emotion, and we're able to still experience that. So I had someone call me recently, a friend of mine, and he said, I know you're still doing investigations, and I might want you to come out, but I want to wait till after this COVID stuff's over. But my wife saw a full body apparition in our bedroom. So he said it freaked her out. And I said, so let's talk about it. He's a police officer. So I said, let's kind of walk through that, and I want you guys to keep a journal of everything. Every time you experience something, write down the date and time and what you experienced. Then we're going to go back through that and look for patterns, but also dig a little bit and let's see if we can find a death certificate or an anniversary or, something, a birthday, something that would be important to that person that she may have saw. So we started digging, and it actually turns out the day she saw that full body apparition is the day, it's the same date that the guy had passed away, and he passed away inside of the house in that bedroom. So once that day was over, the next day, and the day after, and the day after that, activity started to slow down again, and they haven't really experienced a whole lot. So I'm I'm assuming that next year or this year, when this comes up again, this date comes back around, experience is probably going to start to peak again, and then die back down after that date passes.
Is that common for kind of spirits to be kind of associated with maybe an anniversary or a special date?
Yeah, I think that's in the paranormal field. I think a lot of different teams and people, I think they all kind of believe that that's a lot of activity is kind of around those events or those dates. Well, it's whatever's significant to that person that passed.
And, I was thinking you were saying about COVID. Do you think with so many people now quarantined and staying at home, have you noticed like an increase in these reports? People are at home more than ever, and maybe they've noticed things more.
I've seen a little bit more posts on Facebook or other social medias, but as far as people reaching out to us, there hasn't been a lot more, I would say, than normal. It really died down quite a bit. The team kind of took a little bit of a break, and then we kind of did a reboot and brought it back. So we're kind of getting our feet on the ground and starting to run again. But it's starting to pick up, but it's not to where it used to be. It used to be we would get, multiple investigation requests weekly. So we could probably go investigate 5 or 6 places. And we were getting those from all over. They were just coming in through email and phone calls. But now it's just slowed down so much. And it's the paranormal field's become pretty oversaturated. There's quite a few groups. So just in our area, so we're in the Dayton, Ohio area, mainly the kind of the core group, 4 of us, are in the Dayton, Ohio area. And just in this area alone, I'm sure we could find probably 25 or 30 different groups that do this. So there's a lot of people that have interest in the paranormal or in the history side of it. And it becomes a hobby for them. So there's a lot of options out there as far as what groups to pick and who's got the better equipment or who has more experience in research. So people have options now.
Does Ohio have like a particularly dense, like paranormal activity kind of thing?
I don't know that it's dense. In the Dayton area, we have Wright Pat, so there's a lot of Wright Pat Air Force Base. So there's a lot of rumors and stuff that go with having that base there. Suppose that's where the Roswell aliens were taken, after the crash. So and part of the UFOs and all that. So that is we're 15 minutes from there. Well, I am. They're a few more minutes away, but it's so close. So there's lots of like little legends, or there's a crybaby bridge in like every city. Every cemetery people think is haunted. There's all kinds of like little legends, and so it's trying to sift through those and then find the good nuggets and then go with it.
Going back to Mandy and Kayla, were there, in your experiences of going on these investigations, are there any that like really stand out in your mind?
We investigated the Upper Valley Mall. I think is this when we still have the other core group, Mark?
Yeah, we had Sherry with us.
Yeah, so it was me, you, and Sherry. And I can't remember, was there somebody else with us? I'm not sure, but the Upper Valley Mall is supposedly, I think, was it built on a burial ground, Mark, or was it like owned by the mob or something?
Yeah, so the story was it was owned by the mob, and they believe that people were actually buried in the foundation of the mall when that was being laid.
Yeah. So we were investigating back in, I guess it used to be changing rooms at one time, but they had torn that down, and so they just kind of used as storage. Me and Sherry were back there, and she was sitting in the corner where supposedly like a little girl's been seen. And I was sitting at the crossways of the hallway. Mind you, the lights are all on because you can't turn the lights off at the mall. And next thing you know, we hear this like faint coughing sound, and my EMF detector goes off. And next thing you know, you hear a door slam. There's no doors back there. The only one back there was a heavy electronic room, but that door you can't even budge. So that was pretty interesting. We heard like a little girl coughing. That was one of my first experiences where I was like, wow. And couple more was when we went to the Opera House in Kentucky. We've been there 3 times. And the first time we had some really good experiences setting up our equipment. Right off the bat, this whistle out of nowhere. And it was just me, Mark, and Kayla in that entire building. We just took off running to the auditorium because that's where they say the whistles come from. That was pretty intense and interesting. And obviously we've heard footsteps at the Opera House, and we caught that EVP. Me and Kayla were just sitting up in the room. So we've had some really good experiences on that part. That was probably one of my top 2 favorite locations so far.
Yeah, I think one that sticks out for me, we went to the Mansfield Fire Museum, which is a interesting location,
Yeah.
very, very rich in history. They have a lot of, different artifacts and all kinds of things. But they actually have some items from the Mansfield Reformatory. So they have a couple of pews. They have a jail cell. So we had another group with us from the Shadows podcast. We had a few of them with us, and then just a couple of mutual.
I think we had 2 of Mark's friends.
Yeah, we had a couple of mutual friends that went with us because it's a pretty big area to cover. So we split up a little bit. And I actually went into the room where they have that jail cell, and I sat down and had my recorder in there. And I hadn't been in there probably more than a couple of minutes, and I just felt awful. I had this overwhelming sense of just dread and sadness, and I got really hot, lightheaded, thought I was going to pass out. I just felt absolutely awful. So I got up, went to the rest of the group, let them know what was happening. So one of the guys went in there, and we were able to, he took an EMF detector that also made noise. Mm-hmm. So we were able to, he was asking some questions, and then whatever was in there was actually answering those questions by making the EMF go off. So we said, make it go off once for yes and twice for no. And we were able to get responses, each time that made sense. And we were able to kind of decipher that it was a man that was in there, and he told us he was not wrongly accused. He was in there for a reason, and he did not like women. And every time we asked if I could go back in, it was just an adamant no. So that was pretty interesting. That was an interesting one.
Yeah, that
was. And Mark, you've been doing this for quite a while now. Do you have any kind of really memorable experiences that you can share with us?
Oh man.
I mean, you've said, I think, did say 15 years?
Yeah, so there's definitely been some really good experiences. More recently than early on. Early on, we caught a lot of EVPs, but now with how technology is changing, there's more options. There's more tools to use. So we did an investigation, the 3 of us and my wife Marianne. We did an investigation at the Buckeye Sports Lodge, and that's in Springfield, Ohio. Some of the best food. I'd highly recommend going there. But I'm friends with the owner, and he let us come in because he renovates homes and buildings, and he was doing some renovations inside of the Buckeye Lodge. And this is early on, right before everything got closed down, before COVID. And he had us come in, and we did an investigation there. And one of the rooms where he was actually pulling down part of the wall, and he was trying to restore it, and he found these giant murals painted on the walls. And so he was trying to dig into that and do some research. But I've been using this app called EchoVox, and it's like a spirit box, but it's a well-known, not like a fake kind of toy app, but we were using that and we were getting direct responses for things with some names. And also, while we were asking questions, we had a camera on the bar, and we're in a different room. We had a camera facing towards the room the bar is in, that dining area. And there's an exit sign. And we were able to get yes and no responses to questions by interacting with the lights on the exit sign. So having it flash however many times we ask it to flash or to turn off or to turn on command, it was doing that. So we were able to capture some of that. So we then moved into the bar area. And while we were sitting there at the bar doing our investigation, we all heard through the Echovox, we all heard what sounded like glasses kind of clanking. It was really cool, really good experience. Mm-hmm. That it's not something that you would experience often.
And what exactly is a spirit box?
Mandy, you want to answer that one?
The spirit box basically creates white noise, so it scans different frequency channels, like a radio, but it's more like static noise. A lot of times you can get responses through that because they're trying to use that type of energy to communicate. So a lot of times if you ask a question, you have to really just listen for that word to come through. I know Mark used that same app at the Opera House, and we got it to answer what was on the stage because we had toys on the stage, and it actually came through and said ball, cat, because I had a stuffed cat on stage. And then Mark goes, well, what's my name? And then it would say Mark. And then next thing you know, it goes, who's next to me? And it would say my name. And then it said Kayla's name. So it's really fascinating to see how they'll communicate through different technologies, even like a walkie-talkie or a baby monitor. It's just kind of like that. It's just static noise. And it's a little nervy at first because you're like, whoa, but very interesting and very cool to definitely see. But when we were at the Buckeye sports bar, I think that was one thing I've never experienced was the clanking of glasses. Because when we used it at the Opera House, there was no clanking of glasses. So that was a completely different experience between the two places. And using that app, it's been really neat to see the difference in the places when we use it. So,
yeah, and what's cool is there's no way the app would have known that we were sitting at the bar.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got to kind of take into consideration. I know a lot of people using the app. A lot of people say, "Well, the microphone's on. It can hear what you're saying, and it's going to react to that." But at no point, I don't believe at any point did we say that we were actually sitting at the bar when we started hearing what sounded like the glasses clanking, and that kind of stuff, the shuffling around.
Yeah,
we
said we were at the bar. We just went from the room we were in because we saw the exit sign flashing. We just went out there and started talking.
Yeah, so it was a really cool experience.
And do you have any other kind of like specialized equipment that you take with you?
I would say the Eddies are probably the newest equipment, and we have yet to use those. So those will be used for the first time on our investigation on the 12th.
And what exactly are the Eddies?
So the Eddy, it's a EMF detector, but it also records. It's basically a data logger, so it records multiple different things. I'm actually going to pull it up here on the website so I can get. Okay, so the Eddy does EMF detection. It does vibration detection. It has environmental sensors, so it'll do ambient temperature, humidity, barometric pressure. It logs that data. You can pop a memory card into it, and it'll record it. So when you have an experience, it'll automatically record it right onto the memory card the whole time the Eddy's running. If you have the memory card in it, it'll record. So then you can take that and you upload it to the website, and they have free graphing software that pops in all the data, and then you get these charts that come out, and you can see, like, say you had an experience at 2:54 a.m. and you caught an EVP, and the eddy, maybe the EMF tripped, maybe it didn't, but it's still recording all the other data, the environmental sensors. So you go through there and you look, okay, so you look at the timestamp at 2:54 a.m. Yeah, I did have a spike in the barometric pressure, or the humidity dropped. You know, there's all kinds of things that with the new technology that we're able to document and log things and hopefully get, you know, good data that we can use in the future when we go back places to try to figure out how these spirits are able to interact and what they manipulate in the process of interacting.
It almost sounds like a real life, like Star Trek tricorder, you know?
Yeah.
Because, you know, people will describe there being like little cold spots or something. And, you know, there probably wouldn't be an EMF for that. But if you had some way to measure the temperature, you might actually find that cold spot.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like an all-in-one device. A lot of people use the REM pods, like on some of the TV shows and stuff. And this will do everything the REM pod does, except it records. And then it actually does more. The REM pods are just mainly EMF, but the eddies can do a lot more than that. So we can use them as sensors, you know, setting them up in certain areas and trying to get things to interact with the eddy devices. But it's going to be awesome, I think, going forward. I'm very anxious and excited to get to test these out in the field on the 12th.
So earlier you mentioned, you know, that there's a lot of TV shows about, you know, paranormal investigators and stuff. How do you folks feel that are kind of actually doing the work independently of a TV show? There's no cameras following you around.
Could you repeat that one more time?
Oh, yeah. So earlier you'd mentioned, you know, that there's so many of these kind of paranormal investigator TV shows out there. How do you feel about that? You know, seems like there's a bit of a divide between the people that have cameras following them and the people that are actually, you know, just independently going out there and investigating.
Honestly, the hardest part, I think, is not getting paid to do certain things, because a lot of it, the majority of it. So in 15 years, we accept donations, but in 15 years, we've made $75 in donations. So that's not much money at all, considering one of these eddy devices costs 190 some bucks, 180 some bucks. They're not cheap. So, I mean, you, as local teams that don't have the network, television network behind them, we're purchasing all of our own equipment. So it's a lot of money being dumped in, where with the television networks, you know, they're going to get some funding for that. And they're going to get funding for travel and food and all that kind of stuff, because that's their job, right? So it's our job as well, but it's our job kind of as a hobby job on the side. So we all work full time. So, for example, on the 12th, we were trying to figure out earlier today what time we're going to be able to leave. But we're supposed to start investigating at between 7 and 8. So we're going to be walking in the doors at like 7 or 8 o'clock just because of work schedules. So it's leaving work, coming home, grabbing the stuff, you know, let the dogs out, and then off you go. And then you're right there, no real break in between. So, and then, you know, trying to stay up that whole night investigating. So we don't get the luxury of sleeping some during the day. But, you know, all in all, I don't think there's a whole lot of a divide between the two. There are some major differences, though.
Yeah, I think sometimes we hear skeptics say, you know, that this witness is just saying this for money, or these investigators are just in it for the money. But the reality is the people that do even make a couple bucks off any of this are very few, very few. Most everybody is just doing this because it's something they really, really care about.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And they have a desire to help people.
So earlier you were talking about the demon, and I'm just wondering, like, how do you know the difference? Do those demons ever try to pretend to be spirits, or are they very clearly what they are?
So yes, I think they do try to pretend to be spirits. They demons are, a lot of people call them a familiar spirit. So they have been around, forever. So they know what's going on. They know the people. I think a lot of times, in a lot of situations, when there's demonic stuff, I think a lot of it starts out with them trying to cause fear. That's one of their big things, is they want to scare the crap out of you, and not just like some of the stuff you see on the TV shows where someone gets poked or they see a shadow person and get startled. I mean, like, legit try to scare you. So when we were in that house, the entire team that was with me, except for Rocky, we were all sitting on the couch in the living room. So there were 4 of us there. And Rocky was standing beside the couch. And the whole atmosphere in the place just kind of got weird. But when we first got there, it was doing like little things. Like, so we started investigating the basement. And we split up into 2 teams. So there's 2 people per team. And Sherry and I went down to the basement. And these little tiny nails started sliding across the floor at us on the basement floor. And I looked over, and there was a room there that they were coming out of. So we both saw it. So we took the flashlights and we walked into that room. And there weren't, we couldn't find anyone in there. There wasn't anything that was throwing those out. So, we did more investigating. I think it was just kind of toying with us, little things we experienced. But then about halfway through, I started asking questions. Like, I want to know what it is, because I feel like this whole time we've been chasing our tails. It does something here, and we run over there and try to investigate it, and we're not catching it, but we experienced it. And so I said, we're all sitting on that couch, and I said, if you're going to do something, do something that we all can see, we all can experience. And the couch moved. It's actually slid out from the wall, and 3 of us are sitting on it. So I said, okay, that was weird. So I thought it was Rocky. I thought he was screwing around with us, but it's late. So I'm not really thinking, Rocky's not going to move a couch that quickly with 3 of us sitting on it. So we pushed the couch back, and we all lifted our feet, and I said, can you do it again? And it moved the couch again. So we hopped off the couch, and I started asking questions. And I said, are you a boy? If you are, knock once for yes, knock twice for no. It knocked twice. Okay. Are you a girl? Knock once for yes, knock twice for no. It knocked twice. So that, in my opinion, that leaves only a couple things. So I said, if you're an angel, knock once for yes, knock twice for no. It knocked twice. I said, if you're a demon, knock once for yes, and it pounded the wall. And a picture actually fell off the wall. But it was loud. It was a loud bang. Picture fell off the wall. I went and put the picture up. And as I was walking, everywhere I stepped, it would knock underneath my feet from the basement floor. So, and that's when it started, like, it's to me, that was it kind of taunting me. When we first got there, it was kind of just getting a feel for us, just trying to scare us, get us out of the house. But that's when things started going south. And when it started to manifest, it actually, went into somebody, and the person started speaking another language. I actually have the audio of this still, but he was speaking another language and put his hands, he put his hands out, was kind of like chanting. There's some other things that happened too. I don't want to get into all the details of it, but I mean, there's just a lot of things that were taking place that, to me, it was clear that was definitely demonic. And so when we all got around him and cast out the demons, and he started, dry heaving, and some stuff happened. Some things moved from the basement to the floor we were on without us seeing it move, which was very weird. And it was stuff that I'd asked early on in the investigation, because I was starting to get ticked off because nothing was happening. So I've learned to not do that anymore. But I said, well, if you want to do something impressive, why don't you move this? There was a little plush bunny. It was a dog toy. So why don't you move this from the basement? Why don't you make it go somewhere else? Move it upstairs. And I said, do it on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Nothing happened. So when he was chanting, he had his hands over top of, I had moved a trash can over by him because he was dry heaving. So I thought, man, if he throws up, I'm going through like, we're going to get sued because he's going to barf on the carpet and ruin the carpet, or something. So I moved the trash can over by him, and he started chanting over that trash can. And then at the end, when everything was good, I moved that trash can, and that bunny was underneath that trash can. And there's no way it would have been there. So the demon tried that twice. It tried to, get into someone twice. And before we left, I had a lady at my work come up to me, and she said, "Are you going on an investigation tonight?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "So I had a dream about this for like the last 2 or 3 nights, and I hadn't said anything, but I just feel like I need to tell you." And she described things that would happen on the investigation that happened. It all came to pass. So, it was just, there's a lot of things that lined up, and she flat out said, "This is a demonic case. You should not go." And I said, "Well, we got to help this family." So we ended up, when it was all said and done, we left and everything was okay. The family did not stay there that night.
I wouldn't.
But another group, what's that?
I wouldn't spend the night there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. So another group actually came in. They were closer because Ashtabula, it's a good 5 hours. It's a good drive for us. So we went home, went over all the evidence, but another group came in, and it's actually a group of mostly pastors, and we worked with them, talked to them on the phone and stuff, and they went through and did a whole cleansing of the house, and everything's good. So there were 3 women that lived there, mom and 2 girls. One of the girls was fighting real bad depression, like suicidal depression. The other girl had real bad anxiety, and the other was battling cancer. And all 3 of those things were gone after the house was cleansed. So, it just, to me, that's all stuff that points to demonic.
Did the person who was possessed, did they have any memory of this experience?
Yes, they did. Yeah, that was actually a person we had taken on he had just joined the group, had been with us for maybe 6 months. And he actually had a history of some satanic worship stuff that I didn't know about. So that all kind of came about in conversations after the fact. But yeah, he remembered.
Wow. So would some people be more vulnerable to this?
I believe so. Yeah.
Like, do you have to screen people when they want to join you?
Yeah. So we're careful. When people, we don't just take anybody, but when people want to join, we talk to them quite a bit beforehand. With Kayla, it was a little different because she knew Mandy real well. So Mandy was kind of like her voice with the group. So when we brought Kayla on, we went to a place that we knew had, like, we took her to the Ross Opera House in Kentucky. That was your first place you investigated with us, right, Kayla?
Yes.
Yeah. So we took her there because that place is, they haven't had anyone out of all these groups that come in and investigate. They haven't had anyone say anything about any demonic or evil entities or anything like that. So we figured that would probably be a safe bet, kind of to get her going, get some experience with equipment, get experience investigating, and then also get all of us back together, because that was early on, before COVID.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, because was it the third time we went? Second or third time we went? I think it was the third time they had the first case of COVID in that town, if I remember right.
It was the third time we went. They had COVID.
Yeah. So we went pre-COVID. We haven't been back since, but we are planning. We are planning on going back because we got some cool evidence from the last 2 investigations that we want to use to help dig further into this story of their haunting.
And are there any places that you are kind of like I don't know if this would be the right way to say it, but like a wish list, like of places you want to visit, you want to investigate, but you're just waiting for the opportunity?
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. The list is huge, and it's in multiple states. So I've investigated down in Florida. I investigated in several different states, but we have a list of areas in Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Florida, Oklahoma. I mean, there's a list. Eventually, we'd like to hit most of those places, if not all of them.
So let's say someone is having experiences in their home, that something is happening, something paranormal. What advice would you have for those folks?
I would recommend definitely log everything. I mentioned it earlier in the chat, but make sure they're keeping a journal of what's happening, time and date, and what they experienced in detail. And then if they can look back at that and see if there's a pattern. The other thing is maybe not try to reach out on their own to these entities. There's tons of groups, including our own, that will come out for free, and we'll take a look and investigate. And if they want to investigate with us through that, they can. Typically, we like to investigate on our own first, and then, reveal what we found and see if it lines up with anything they've been experiencing. And then if they need some closure or some way to maybe try to tell these things to leave them alone or whatever, we can be there as moral support for that. So we have in the past, I've brought homeowners in to do investigations. And those, a lot of those times it helps when the homeowners are there and they feel like we've got their back, kind of when they're telling this stuff. Okay, we need you to stop doing this. It's really scaring the crap out of the kids or the whole family or whatever. So a lot of times when they approach it like that, the stuff backs off, and I don't know if it's just more careful or if it just is like, okay, well, I'll move on to something else now. I don't know how that works because I'm not, I'm not a spirit yet, but a lot of times when they approach these things, confront them, and tell them, hey, we need you to back off. It's not okay for you to be touching me. It's not okay for you to tug on my hair. I know you just might be trying to get my attention, but there are other ways we can do this. And, typically the activity slows down or stops. But I would recommend not doing it on their own. Get a group, have a group come in, just make sure they do their research, find a group that's not going to be doing all kinds of crazy stuff, but have a group come in and just kind of be there with them. Tell them what your expectations are, kind of what they need, a group that's going to listen. So when they tell the group, hey, we wanted you to come in and do an investigation, but this is kind of our goal. This is what we want the outcome to be. We want to try to approach these things or confront these things at the end of the investigation or during the investigation, and let them know it's not okay to keep doing this stuff. And a lot of groups are going to be okay with that. But they just do your research and figure out, what group local to you, or if you don't want a group local to you and you want to go with a bigger group that's more well-known, that's okay too. Just make sure you do your research and find a good group that's going to help you.
So these spirits do seem to kind of communicate back and forth. What do you usually say when you're encountering a new one? Like, someone calls you up, you come in there, like, how do you start that conversation?
Well, we usually go, for instance, like when me and Kayla did the Rod's Opera House, like it was like her first time doing it. So we would sit and you just kind of be really inviting and really polite and just introduce yourself. We find a lot of times that if you say, hi, my name is Mandy and this is Kayla. Is there anybody with us that would like to chit chat or talk, and that just kind of be an opening and not being so rough. Some people are really rough when they investigate. So they're like, make your presence known now. Like sometimes that's not very helpful. You really need to be polite, introduce yourself. It's just like you're talking to somebody, just asking questions, seeing if you can get any reaction, anything from, who could be there. You don't know what the spirit is or the entity is. It could be a little kid. It could be an older lady and an older gentleman. You just don't know. So going in and being really rough doesn't always work. So being polite and having, really clear questions and seeing if you can get responses that way. And if you are getting responses that's leading you towards maybe a kid, then you want to start doing things more kid-like. Or if you have something that's like an older man, trying to just talk about different things and seeing what kind of reactions you can get.
And a lot of it is utilizing your tools as well, whether that be, actual marketed ghost hunting equipment or just bringing in a stuffed animal. We bring a little stuffed cat on all of our investigations. I also have dogs, so we bring a dog ball that is a little kind of squished from use. So
that I bring.
So just bringing different things and having them interact with that. I mean, a lot of times it can be a little disconcerting to, whoever you're trying to get in contact with. You bring in all this equipment and they're like, what's going on? And then they don't want to come out as much, especially if you have, a kid that you're trying to get in contact with. So a lot of times the more inviting that you can be, the better the outcome is going to be. So utilizing stuffed animals and balls and toys and even things like flashlights that aren't so huge and mechanical and scary looking, that can sometimes get a lot more better responses. Just say, hey, can you turn on this flashlight? Like, this will be a fun game. Or, hey, can you kick that ball as hard as you can? And, sometimes you can get objects to move that way.
Why do you think these spirits kind of linger in these places?
I mean, there can be multiple reasons. A lot of times, like if it's a house, sometimes it could be the former homeowner just didn't want to leave, grew up in that house. Or, that family could be very inviting so that spirit's like, hey, I want to be in there. Like there could just be multiple factors.
Have there been any like reports, or have you experienced anything where maybe the spirits and the demons might be like in conflict? Because I could see a spirit not being happy that there is like a demon there.
I don't know, Mark.
I actually have not ran into anything like that. I would assume that could happen though.
Wow. Well, we've gone way over on time. I have so many questions though, but thank you so much for your time. I really.
Yeah, we can do a part 2.
Yeah, we should. We totally should. If listeners want to learn more about your group and your organization, where should they go?
The best place to go is the OhioParanormalSociety.com. That will have links there to all of our social media. It'll have. We'll probably be able to link this podcast to that page so people can click on it and listen. You can get in contact with us through there. You can learn about our group, kind of what we do. You can click on each person and get a little bit of info about what they do in their everyday life. So if like Kayla, if she's a vet, or Mandy, whatever. But so these are all things that you can just learn about, get to know how we function as a group, and also reach out to us right through there.
And you also have a podcast. I think there's one episode out.
There is one episode.
Yep.
It's called The Nightly Noise. And it is a paranormal podcast. We're going to be doing something new on the 12th. Actually, during our investigation, we're going to be doing the podcast. It'll be recorded, but it's not going to be edited down. It's going to be just, the Q&A kind of deal, but in the middle of our investigation in one of the most active areas. So if we start hearing knocks, noises, voices, EVPs, whatever, we may actually do a little EVP session on the podcast. But we are going to put all that out there, and it's just going to be a raw thing. So hopefully video as well as audio.
And what was the podcast called one more time for listeners?
The Nightly Noise.
All right. Once again, thank you so much for your time and for your stories and your insights. And I would love to have you back on again. This is absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thank you for listening. If you want more information about the Ohio Paranormal Society, the links are in the show notes. If you liked this show and you want to hear more, would you please consider supporting the show financially at patreon.com/podofmystery. All I need is one person to become a supporter for $5 a month, and I'll start making more episodes. If I can get 10 people, I'll do the show once a week. If I can get 100 patrons supporting the show at patreon.com/podofmystery, I'll start doing the show twice a week. One episode will be free and the other will be an exclusive premium episode available only to my patrons. But right now, I have 0 patrons for the show. All we need is for one of you with a few extra bucks to step up and become a patron. That person could be you. For $5 a month, you personally, you, the person listening to my voice right now, you could literally be the reason why I make more episodes. I just need one of you to start supporting the show on Patreon. I just need some indication that this show is enjoyed and valued enough that people will pay money for it. I'm trying to make this crazy show my full-time job. You can help me do that by becoming a patron of the show on patreon.com/podofmystery or by visiting podcastomystery.com/support. On the next episode of the Podcast of Mystery, we will be talking to Lisa from Cryptid Comforts. She makes these absolutely adorable little stuffed animals of Bigfoot, Mothman, and my favorite, the Hopkinsville Goblin. Check out her wonderful handmade plushies at cryptidcomforts.com. And listen to our interview right now on episode number 5 of the Podcast of Mystery. I'll also be talking to Matthew Hines of the Encounters USA podcast. We talk about his show, a strange UFO sighting in the Middle East, and his incredible experience at the UFO hotspot that is ECETI Ranch in Trout Lake, Washington. Episode number 5 is available right now wherever you listen to audio. Thank you so much for listening. This has been the Podcast of Mystery, and I have been your host, Jason Rigdon.